Haere mai ki tēnei te whare o te kaunihera o Rotorua. Welcome everybody to our first official standing committee meeting of our Te Arawa 2050 vision. Sincere warm welcome. And I'll ask Paula if he'll do the appropriate mihi to welcome you all. And Hemi James will reply. Kei a koe, Paula? Yeah.
Hui, tuarua mā tātou, o tī rā, pai ki te kitea i o koutou, ngā mema o te komiti nei, ara ko te tatau o te Arawa, me koutou hoku ngā mātarai o te kaunihera nei. Nō reira, mai mātou te kaunihera e rere atu nei ngā mihi, haere tonu ngā mihi, haere tonu ngā mihi, haere tonu ngā mihi. Pai anō, kia whiu aku whakaro ki a rātou ko whetūrangitia, me rātou hoki e noho pani ai, nō reira, rātou ki a rātou hoki wairua mai ki a tātou. O tī rā, tēnā koutou i te whare, pai ki te kiti e a koutou, tēnā koutou, keraro, e a koe i te matu.
Tēnā tātou i te whare, mihana ki a koe, te tiamana, tainoa mai ki a koe, te manukura o tī rā tātou katoa, ka hui a tēnana, rāua tahi, e hono mai a ipurangi, i runga i tēnei kaupapa whakahirehira. Anō reire e paura tēnei te mihi ati ki a koe, nau tō tātou mihi, tō tātou whakatau, mai te taha kaunihera, kia mātou te taha o te tatau o te Arawa. Hika kautonu, mātou, te whakahoki mai ki roto i te whare nei, te whakahoki mai ki runga i te tēpū, kia whiri ai ngā kōrero ko tīmata ai i tō tātou hui tuatahi. Nō reira i runga i ngā whakaro, ai mātou, kia koutou tainoa mai ki ngā kaumahi o te kaunihera, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa.
Tēnā kōrua, thank you very much for the warm mihis. Just a few pānuis at the beginning. The meeting is live streamed, so I urge you to turn your mobile phones off, and a break will be taken to allow members to clear urgent messages, and we'll have an afternoon break around 2 p.m. But something important for us to begin our hui, I'm going to ask our niece, Rangi Tiaria, to do a karakia for us. Kei a koe, hini.
Tēnā tātou e te whare, tēnā kōrua Paura, kōrua ko James, o kōrua ngā mihi waha i tēnei haora, kia hihiri tātou. Tūtawa mai i runga, tūtawa mai i raro, tūtawa mai i roto, tūtawa mai i waho. Kia tau ai te mauri te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tāiki e. Tēnā tātou.
Hine. And now I call for apologies. I do have one from Rawiri Waru who phoned me this morning. Unfortunately, he couldn't get out of another commitment that he had. Any others, please?
Yes, apologies for early departure. I need to leave at 3 p.m, sorry. Apologies for an early departure. I need to leave at 3 p.m, sorry.
Thank you.
Please receive apologies from Te Waiarangi. She's currently overseas at the moment and has been trying to, she could join online, but at this point I'm going to submit her apologies. Kia ora.
Thank you. And we have Portoa there on the screen. Tēnā koe.
I'll just, in half an hour, I'll be jumping houses. so I'll be just in transit for an hour, but then I'll be back at 7 o'clock my time. Okay, thank you. And greetings from LA. Oh, greetings from California, so.
Ka pai tērā. So could I have a mover, please, for accepting of the apologies? Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. And a seconder, Deputy Mayor Sandra Kai-Fong. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Also a welcome to some members in the gallery that are here with us this afternoon, and also the media that's joined us as well, and some sitting amongst our staff and that there together. A warm welcome. Nō reira, item agenda number 3, any declarations of interest call for? Any? No? Ka pai?
Mr. Chair, I suppose I should declare I'm also a regional council. I'm also a regional councillor, so that could be conflict from time to time. So I just wanted to announce that.
Kia ora. Noted. Thank you, Te Taru. And now number 4. This is for in the urgent items area. Are there any urgent items anyone wishes to raise? Minor matters? Ka pai? Nothing there, so moving on further. Over the page, getting into. All right. Agenda item number 5. This is the confirmation of the minutes of the Te Arawa 2050 Vision held on the 18th of February. Page 6, got that over there. And I'll ask for a move and a seconder that the minutes of the Te Arawa 2050 committee held on 18th February be confirmed as a true and correct record. Any correctness? Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Fisher-Wang, the mover and the seconder. I'll put the motion to the vote. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, whānau. And now we move onto agenda item number 7. These are staff reports. Page 12 on your agendas. And I'm going to ask for a move and a seconder that the report of the Te Arawa 20 Vision Committee, confirmation of the key projects we received. Thank you, Councillor O'Brien, and seconded Rangi Te Aria. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Now we move into that. I invite Paul Warbrick and Jude Punny to come to the top desk there and overview the report for us. Tēnā kōrua.
Tēnā koutou te whare, ki a koe te he mana, koutou katoa, ngā mema o te committee nei. Thank you for today, actually. It's an exciting day that we're back here for our second hui in the reset of the Te Tatau o Te Arawa partnership under the Te Arawa 2050 Vision Committee. I'll take the report as read and I'll speak to a couple of key points that has occurred over the last month or so as we bring this report to you. So a real highlight over the last 4 to 5 weeks has actually been seeing the partnership in action, in particular Te Tatau o Te Arawa staff and some of their elected members and our own staff and GMs working collectively to scope the projects that you recommended and endorsed at the first meeting, and in particular identifying, researching those projects to identify where we could work together. And I'm enthusiastic today about what will transpire and that you'll endorse those outcomes so that we can actually start to live and breathe our 2050 Vision Committee and bring those benefits to both Te Arawa, all Māori and the wider community. They are exciting. There's lots of hope and potential in them. So it has been a real pleasure to not only, I guess, sometimes instances facilitate merely some of those meetings, because actually it wasn't just Te Amorangi that were in those. There were all of our other work streams, but to see the collaboration and the rich conversations occur. So that's been a real highlight. I'll hand over to my fellow Manahotu, Jude.
Well, kia ora tātou, Mr Chairman, members. I endorse Paula's comments from my perspective. Since the committee was established and over that passage of time, I have worked seamlessly with your operations team, so I just want to commend this council, I suppose for the trust and a little bit of risk taking as well in this space. So I've worked in local government a long time, and one of the challenges for local government is around what's called executive capture. And I've been talking to different elected members around, well, it's really the executive that is running the council and running local government. The elected members come and go each 3 years. But what my experience over this last, I suppose it's just a few months, working with Andrew and Polder and the executive team, a real partnership approach, which I haven't experienced in my time at an operational level, I'm saying, and to implement the council's policy and the council's vision. So I just want to make that statement to start with. So it's a beginning. I'm very hopeful. I feel positive about where this partnership's heading, and as it goes into a new triennium, it's been rocky. There's been times where we've thought, where are we going? But to actually have projects identified and to be able to move forward with your executive in a partnership approach is, it's energising and encouraging. And the 5 projects that the committee have tasked us as staff to move forward on, you'll notice in the report some of them are quite far-reaching. They're into the future. So they will take time, and as we work through those, some of them, like the elections, they've got more time frames, they've got more deliverables around them, they're more the instant. And then the Rotorua one is actually giving you, as elected members, line of sight of this key project, and that hasn't happened too often in the past, to actually get line of sight of the strategy at this governance level, which is really important. So I think that's just my comments in introducing. Unfortunately, I apologise. I'm going to have to sit here through the whole 5 projects. That we've got a huge operational team, but as we work through them, I'll call on Rosemary or others to respond to technical questions if I can't adequately answer members' questions. So, but I will reiterate that I've worked closely with Polder since he's been on board, and with the GMs, with Stavros, with JP, and Greg, of course, in the election space. So, that's positive. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's just my introduction.
So now I ask members any questions or points of clarification on any of the things that's just been raised. And moving on to the first project being 3.1 of Arawa.
Rotorua?
Start with that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll introduce that, and Polder, alongside Rosemary, is our key lead in the space, and Jenny Rini, of course, was prior to Rosemary's time. But this is really just placing before the council where this project's at. It's just, this is where it's at across the Rotaki, the strategy, and also across the Tutua Mai projects. So really it's about, are there any questions around that? The outcome is that we're seeking, it's about receiving that, noting that at operational level we'll complete that, we'll keep driving that forward, but then comes where does this go to now, and whether that's for this council or the incoming council. It's about once the strategy's done and dusted, all the accountability's back to our funders, and there was considerable funding that underpinned this strategy. It's about where to from here. So this is just really an update report and to respond to questions. And from a board level, Rangitiria was our lead in this space. Te Tatau, we're so thin on the ground, we do work in a partnership model with our board, who of course are accountable back to Te Arawa. So we have a little bit of a different governance management model in place. So thank you.
Open for any questions from colleagues. Kei a koe I te taru.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I'm cognizant as we go through all of these aspects that Jude has just addressed, that going back some ways now, 10 years since Tatawa Te Arawa has been in place. And part of that journey, a very important part, was the establishment of the Te Arawa 2050 vision. And this is the document I have got here. It took 18 months to pull together, but it's very unique in the way it's sort of collectivised the historical issues that Te Arawa, at most part, can agree with and bring to the table, and it becomes a very solid document for which we can reference as we move forward. And the name of this committee, obviously, is the Te Arawa 2050 Vision Committee, so it's probably quite important just to make that reconnection again with the vision, because some of the points that Tata are raising do come out of that vision, but it opens the door for, obviously, to hear where our partner in this scenario, wishes to be with and work with and be on and can investigate add-ins to the space. That's what it is to me anyway. An opportunity for us to work on things that benefit the community as a whole, and of course having Te Arawa engaged and involved in the context of where this vision has come from is sort of secures it in a way that there is this history behind it, a strength behind this conversations we embark on. So it's not a lonely conversation that pulls projects out of the air. It's things that have been discussed over time, haven't always happened, and I'm mindful of the fact that during this 10 years there were some projects that Tatawa Te Arawa worked on, put a lot of effort into, and so on and so forth. So I'm looking forward to that contribution being laid on the table as well. You mentioned Rotorua. I mean, obviously there was a lot of effort put into that. In the technology side, we did work with Council way back with Datacom at that point as well, looking at actually establishing an opportunity, a hub for that level of technology being brought to Rotorua and inviting employment and engaging in added value in the technology space. So there are these things here that I'm looking forward to being able to highlight as we get through the conversations. I only say that because a lot of effort was put into that, and rather than burn that effort and put it to the side at any point, it'd be quite nice to understand where those particular projects likewise with the council as well, or projects that you have on the go. So that's what I'm looking forward to, sitting around this table. And I guess I've been around a while in this particular space, and looking forward to the relationship and the engagement that can actually really bear some fruit for all of us around this table and make the most of our time and collective efforts. I'm certainly in favour of collective efforts, understanding what the common interest is, and going hell bent for leather once we've got that common interest of making it happen. So just all I want to say, Mr. Chair, as some level of introduction before we get into the details of the different projects. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Taru. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of points stemming from the bullet points in this report. What is tactical urbanism? That's question one. Tell me what that is in a sec. But also, I'm sure you're aware, Rotorua Lakes Council has committed 10 million in years 4, 5 and 6 of the current LTP. And what's the timing for what you've written here, and how would that intersect with the potentially planning for the upgrade of the CBD?
Through you, Te Hemana, Councillor Brown. Regarding the tactical urbanisation and wayfaring project, that's near completion at the moment, and I'm hopeful to bring evidence of that work that's being currently worked on between Te Tatau and Rotorua NZ, and they're in their final stages, and that's about storytelling through the CBD. And I invite my colleagues here to add to that, but we're in the final stages of that. I was actually hopeful of getting some imagery by this meeting, but I'll make sure that I bring it through the next reporting period as well as our Te Arawa partnership, so you'll see evidence of that. But I know that, excuse me, the team from Rotorua NZ have been working hard on that. We're actually through the implementation phase of that. Regarding the LTP, I have to admit I'll need to look at that, but certainly there are some outstanding tasks to do from the current Reorua strategy, but I guess the real highlight is the chance to actually sit with Te Tatau and recraft another strategy going forward about what it is and what is it that you, the elected members, want, and what does our communities want to celebrate. And it's not and I want to reiterate, it's not about bringing just Māori language, it's it's Reorua, it's bilingualism, and making sure that our town reflects our community, our history of tourism and why people want to come here, but also celebrating those that reside here as well. So it's an exciting time to have another chance to pen a new strategy for Reorua. That's a real highlight. I've worked on, this will be my third one. I acknowledge my whanaunga over here, Rosemary, who supported us at a previous council, and what that has meant. I remember previously being a resident in Rotorua when Rotorua announced that it was going to be Rotorua Reorua, and the ripple effect that had across all the other councils around the country, and the motivation that they saw as the exemplars set here by Rotorua and Otaki and those that stepped first into that space, and the energy and what it means for those smaller towns and big ones alike to step into this space and become Reorua. And it's been fantastic. So I trust that I need to look into the long-term plan financial commitments. I have to admit I'm not privy, I haven't looked at that, but I can make sure that I bring that to you.
Okay. Thank you. Just one more, if I may. Just an observational statement, really. The business toolkit, I think this is something Oscar Nathan did back in the day. That might be buried somewhere in the archives, I doubt it, but he had a very good go at that, and I saw a draft attempt. Just wonder whether we can dig some of that out.
Tēnā tātou e te komite, ko Rosemary rangi tawira hau, hei kēnā ki tō pātai, Councillor Brown. In terms of Manaki was the name of Oscar's toolkit. So what we've done is we're looking to blend both. The business toolkit that we're talking about here has been designed based off feedback from local businesses ahead of, this is pre-COVID. So we had sought whakaaro opinions from local businesses to understand how would it work if you join the Reorua journey. So part of the initiative is actually to create Rotorua becoming a premier Reorua destination. So part of this mahi, to support what Oscar has done, we're looking at building from that. Part of the work is to identify what you're wanting in the toolkit. So some of the feedback that we received through a survey was understanding the history of Te Arawa, learning a little bit more about the Fenton Agreement, the founding document for Rotorua, also understanding how to pronounce kupu. That was some of the feedback that we received back. So it's about
leveraging and building off the mahi that Oscar has done.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Mayor Tapsell, thank you.
Ngā mihi nui, through you. The question that I have around Rotorua, and I think this is a really exciting space where there are already plenty of people within our community assisting with encouraging Rotorua, and I do also want to acknowledge Rangi Te Aria for the many, many years of mahi that you've done to encourage others to kōrero Māori too. So my first question is just around partnering with others. So as leaders, how do we bring together those already working in this space and also seek advice from them on the best way to support the continuation of Rotorua in Rotorua?
Through you, Te Hemana, i te manukura, when you ask partnering through others, is it specifically in partnering others as the example that was just spoken to around our business sector, or is it more around bringing in partners with Mātanga Reo, our expert? Can you expand on that, please?
Yeah, it's just a general question on has that been considered? So instead of just Te Tātua, Te Arawa and Rotorua Lakes Council coming up with a plan or a strategy, has there been consideration to, we have many excellent teachers of Te Reo Māori in Rotorua. Of course, we have the formal institutions like Te Wānanga o Te Aroa, and also potentially partnerships with Te Puni Kokiri, the Ministry of Māori Development as well. So I'm just wondering if that's been considered, because I am mindful that the current Rautaki Rotorua Reorua is for 2024 to 2026, and that will come up pretty quickly.
Through you, Mr. Chair, he pātai pai tērā, Your Worship. So we have been working with others. Part of the Rautaki development looks at partnering with other entities. For us, we've been fortunate, for an example, Radio Te Arawa is one of those. We look at what our community is doing well. Welcoming communities is also an example of that, what they're doing. How do we incorporate their direction into the Rautaki Rotorua Reorua? So those are a couple of examples. It's determined similarly to business communities. What would you like to achieve, and how do we embrace you to come into the folds of Rotorua Reorua? So we have over since 2020, when we onboarded the Aotearoa Reorua program, so that's at the national scale, which Paul had talked about. It's all about partnerships and networks. At a localised level, we do work with Mātanga Reo to ensure that part of their wawata, some of their goals, to ensure quality te reo Māori. If we look back at Te Matatini, you can see the quality of te reo Māori has peaked, and that's a reflection on ensuring that we embrace the mātauranga, the knowledge around us, so we take on board what mātanga need from us. An example of that would be the tactical urbanism along to Tanikai Street. We've looked at recruiting the expertise of our local historian, Ben Manley, so I won't list all of the amazing people that we've had, the likes of Kōtihi Reo as well, to ensure that we've got quality reo Māori. So that's at that level, but we have also worked with the likes of Healthy Families and Whānau Ora, looking at some of the beautiful work that they've done and looking at what support. So we don't overstep the mark. Our mahi is to embrace them and see how we can support the work that they want to achieve.
Chairman, I'll just add to that, and that's excellent partai, Tan. It's about what's council space in this, and what's the partnership space, and where does Te Tatau and council fit in as a facilitator in this space. And I think as one looks to the future and the new strategy, I mean, how encouraging is it to see the resurgence of te reo Māori in this country and our mokopuna and our tamariki? So how does, when we develop the strategy, or when council looks at the ongoing strategy, what does that look like? And what space do we take as partners with council in what the strategy looks like for the next few years?
Thank you. Te taru.
Kia ora no, Mr. Chair. Look, my personal view is that, and I just want to congratulate Ngāti Whakau and Te Arawa groups that performed so well. It's Matatini. You know, done so well on the stage. We can come home and do so well back here now. In driving matters cultural in this particular space, because when you look at it, there's real value add for all of us in there. So on the back of those sorts of achievements and success, I humbly say, congratulations, Arawa, and this is a good time to start promoting the reo and the stories that go with it, because as you walk around these streets and look at all the names, there's so many stories to be told to actually alert people to what the magic is in Rotorua in terms of our history, our present and our future together. So there's so much value that I really do applaud this particular project when you look at it in that context.
Ka pai. I do have a pātai. Dured in August 2017, when Te Tātou o Te Arawa and Rotorua Lakes Council and Te Puni Kōkiri launched Rotorua Raorua, we were the first bilingual city in New Zealand. Are there, I'm aware of some, but what are the other cities perhaps that have taken up a similar project?
Tēnā koe te hiamana, he pātai pai tērā. So with a former, I'm a former consultant to the Department of Internal Affairs, fortunate enough to have worked on Aotearoa Reorua, which is bilingual towns and cities, and how this kaupapa works is the likes of mana whenua and council working together to partner because we understand that mana whenua hold the mana over te reo rangatira, our language, but we also appreciate the fact that local councils look after public spaces. So that's a beautiful blend. Part of this mahi is to enhance relationships between councils and mana whenua. Often we've had, through all council history, we've seen environment court action being taken. Sometimes that's because of the fact that maybe the relationship isn't that good. So that's the first point. It's about enhancing relationships. Secondly, is about a vehicle for te reo rangatira, identifying the language. So coming to the point of your pātai atua, we have 10 centres so far. 10 centres from mainly within the North Island. I can't talk about what's happening in the future as I no longer work for DIA, but I can say a predominant number of them centre within the central North Island, the likes of Rotorua, we have Tokorua, Whakatane or Pōtuki. There's also 2 centres in Hawke's Bay, the likes of Hastings and Napier. In the far north, there is also Whaangare and Kirikiri. So, and I mustn't forget, Porirua is also a part of this journey. So a huge underpin of this kaupapa is enhancing relationships. Firstly, when onboarding new centres, it's all about making sure that there's a resilient relationship between mana whenua and council. But what we do appreciate is that the shared mātauranga, coming back to her worship's pātai, is at a localised level for Rotorua Reorua. It's all about onboarding the wairua and the love of reoruatanga. At a national level, we also, for Rotorua, we work with Te Wairua and other centres who have onboarded the program to ensure that we're sharing mātauranga so we don't have to replicate different activities, and we have case studies so we can fast track some of that mahi. So it's a beautiful kaupapa.
Any further? Yes, Councillor Lee. And Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very nice to be able to say Mr. Chair occasionally. One for the boys.
Thank you,
Ka pai. Yes, so thank you for your report. And I have a question, and it's I could support Reorua bilingual. And I've previously, I think at our last meeting, sort of talked about how the Canadian Parliament is bilingual. They speak in French, they have translators, they speak in English, you could speak in both. and obviously it works somehow. I attended a meeting, I guess it was about a year ago, and there was this lovely young wahine who gave us a report about something or other, and therein lies the problem. I couldn't actually understand what her report was about because she was speaking in English sentences, throwing in Māori words, and that's actually looks like it's creating maybe a third language, a Creole, not a pidgin language, but a Creole. And I'm not sure that would be wonderful looking down in the future for our English as a second language. Is that what is this the implementation of this policy? Are we in danger of creating a third language, a Rio Toru?
Kia, koe paura.
Tēnā koe te he mana. Councillor Lee, thank you for your question. In regards to translation services of the occasion where you were perhaps not able to understand, this council can direct staff to explore a business proposition, if it so wishes to, regarding translation services into the future, if that's what you so deem. So we can look at that, and that can come towards us. Other councils do it. That's a significant cost, but that is absolutely available for those that may not have the language and the understanding. So there's one possible mitigation to that challenge. The second one regarding the correct terminology, Creole language, that I understand was answered previously in the first meeting by our Tatau member, Rangitiaria, and I would reinforce that all languages evolve over time, and perhaps one day there may be a third language, but at this point in time, this council, under the Rotorua's commitment, and certainly this partnership as directed by this Room Committee 2050 vision, we are focused on finishing the work of Rotorua, the first iteration, and we are presenting to you today an opportunity to direct staff again to go and refresh and recraft a new strategy taking us beyond. I'd like to just flag the good work of this council previously. I was part of two other Rotorua programs, and one that my kin forgot is actually her own iwi and murupara, and might I say that it was the Rotorua Rautaki that we leaned upon to start our own strategies at both whakatane, which I had to lead out, as well as murupara before I left to come here, and what that has meant for those communities. So I'll leave it at that. Kia ora.
Thank you. Ka pai, Councillor Lee.
Tēnā koe te he mana. I think that your whakaaro, your thoughts are really important to help contribute in that development of the rautaki, to make sure that, say, toolkits, we have taken into consideration the needs of those in our community who are not fluent speakers of te reo Māori, which we do. However, it is really important that we capture that and help to use those things to inform what it looks like moving forward, because it's going to be really hard to get buy-in, more buy-in, I should say, if people don't feel like they're part of that kaupapa. So thank you for the kōrero. In terms of tōpātai, I've just come out of a hui with Te Mātāwai, who continue to invest in Reo Māori initiatives right across the country, and there is desire in that regard to help partner, looking at joint venture opportunities to ensure that not only at a national level, but right across, that there are more being part of that movement to revitalise te reo Māori. And as our awesome team over there have mentioned, there are lots of things that we're doing well, but there are all the other areas that we can look to strengthen, particularly partnerships, but we are a good tauira here for the rest the motu. I've just come out of the studio with, in preparation for the Aronui Festival, which is coming up soon. We have a Matariki drone show, our second iteration of that this year. And we had a group of students from Te Kura Kaupapa Māori Urua Matawa, our very first Kura Kaupapa Māori in Rotorua, whose voices were also captured to be a part of that. So it's not only our mahi here as Te Tatau or as council, but as Rosemary mentioned, working with whānau, hapu, iwi, kura, our schools, our kohanga, to find opportunity for them to be a part of that. So there's lots of mahi happening. But he rawe wā koutou mahi, it's really good that we will look to, once we've completed this part, looking at refreshing the rautaki moving forward.
Ka pai e hine. And Chief Executive before Council about this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly, just to assure Councillor Lee and any others that if at any time you have trouble following what presenters are saying, it's important that we know about it, and staff will make sure that a translation is provided, because I totally take your point that it's important for everyone to be able to participate in the discussion, and it's my commitment that that will happen. So, thank you.
And Councillor Kireopa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to have you as our chair, finally. Thank you for the report. Exciting things. I'm particularly looking forward to when we get to the technology part. But getting back to Rotorua, obviously one of the items in that technology was recommendation of a smart app. Now, when we launch this properly, when it's ready to go, it would be ideal for the smart app to be ready to go at the same time. So it's like one big bang. And from some revenue perspectives, not only would that be relevant for our locals, but obviously for our visitors. And there could be a charge attached. If this is a successful app and well marketed, it could be rolled out across the country. So it could be a great revenue stream for the community and basically self-fund it itself. So just wondering how much work has been looked into as far as the smart app is done.
Through you to Himana, Councillor. Nothing to date has been done regarding the smart app and its linkages to Rotorua, but certainly moving forward, if that's the direction and the new draft of the strategy, we can certainly do that.
Great, thank you.
Finally, Councillor Kireopa.
Thank you very much. Can I just clarify, we're just asking questions about the Rotorua strategy right now, not about the whole report. Okay, thank you.
Questions, clarifications, even,
thank you.
Even some kōrero.
Thank you. So the Rotorua strategy was developed and funded from 2024 until 2026. The proposed outcome is that we continue with the existing strategy and complete it. Can I just, my first question is, has the strategy been ongoing during the time the Te Arawa Council partnership was being renegotiated, or was it paused over the past couple of years?
Kia ora. So it's basically been in pause, given that, so this is the second iteration of the rautaki that was designed for this kaupapa. Under Aotearoa Rotorua, we had signed up to that program in 2020. So this is the second rautaki. Given the fact that we had our elections previously, it's kind of basically with Te Tatau has continued with its mahi as part of the rautaki to allow council time to address what it needs to feed into the rautaki.
Okay.
If I can, through you to him, Councillor Kireopa, some of those tasks had gone into pause mode, but they have been picked up over the last 6 months, and one of those big ones has been the wayfinding, which has been picked up in the last at the end of last year, we started Wheels going again to complete that. We had funding commitments, external funding commitments that we needed to deliver on in supporting Te Tatau o Te Arawa to deliver those. So those are the ones that are outstanding.
Okay, and so my second question is, the remaining activities, are we expecting those activities to take until 2026, the ones that have been listed within the the existing strategy? Are we expecting those activities to take until 2026 to complete? And added to that, is the funding enough to continue that work through to 2026, or are we looking at potentially, because it doesn't seem like there's a lot on that of activities on that list other than the wayfinding path, are we able to wrap that up by the elections at the end of this year so that the new Te Tatau representatives and council members can, or whoever, can negotiate a new Rotorua strategy?
Hei whakautu I tō pātai to answer your question. Realistically, for this Rautaki, there are only two main components that Council needs to achieve. Those are to have a Rotorua wahi, a domain that is real Māori. So we have one already, Taikaka, so we need to install one more new place. So the aim was actually to look at playgrounds across the Rohe as they are naturally due for upgrade, to look at incorporating or installing Rotorua signage around that. So that's the first one. The second one, which Council is working on, is the bicultural framework or Reo Māori policy. In order to complete the compulsory elements of our Rautaki mahi, those would be the two that Council needs to finish off before looking at a new strategy. And I just want to mention that based on the 2024 to 2026 Rautaki, that's us, where Rotorua exits the Aotearoa Reorua program and can seek funding from other avenues that support Reoruatanga, such as the Mātāwai.
One more question. It's a bit confusing. It seems like Te Tatau have an external agreement with an external group that's getting mixed up here with what actually we're supposed to be focusing on is the partnership work for Reorua between Council and Te Tatau. Am I right in that?
Through Te Hemana, Councillor Kiriopa. So the way that the Reorua program works is that both parties agree on a strategy and outcomes, and then through that you can go through and work through how that's funded. And an example is Te Amorangi has existing funding for the next financial year in order for us to complete a te reo policy, so we're safe in that space. The work hasn't started. That's one of the jobs to do. And in particular, the benefit of the partnership, and particularly what Te Tatau brings, and their ability to access external funding. So yes, it does feel like it's through another party. That's purely a funding arrangement, not to run similar through how we might get some of our partners to fund other parts of deliverables for the community, and we're a partner in that. So that's how that arrangement works. So it might look like that, but the partnership is Reorua between Te Tatau and Council, and our partner and us are both able to funding through ratepayers, but also our partner can also access funding that we can't through the likes of Te Mātāwai, TPK, our tourism funding, etc. Those examples are available that we can't.
One more follow-up question, if that's all right. I don't think anyone answered the timeline. Are we expecting this work can be finished by the end of this year, or are we expecting that it's going to take out, when can we expect a new Rotorua strategy to be able to be looked at?
Through Te Hemana, for timelines, completion by financial year 26, with the commitment that once with those outstanding tasks have been done, then we will, if it's endorsed today, we will then start the process of redrafting another iteration of the strategy as per. So yes, we can meet the timelines, financial year timelines.
Thank you, Lani. And before moving off this important topic at Arawa onto the next one, Can I just ask you, Rangitiaria, just to briefly explain, it's come up a couple of times, Te Mātawai, just briefly about that so some of our colleagues will be a bit more aware of it then. Thank you.
Tēnā koe, te tia tangata. Before I do that, if you are not aware of what the word rautaki means, rautaki simply means strategy, ka pai. So you might see that alongside lots of other words, but rautaki means strategy. So it's a bilingual Rotorua strategy that we're working towards. In terms of Te Mātāwai, once the Pere Reo Māori, the Māori Language Bill, was refreshed in 2016, Te Mātāwai was born. There are responsibilities that our government and responsibilities to te reo that they have. This is one example of that. In terms of Te Mātāwai, part of the investment in te reo sits with whānau hapu and iwi. For example, here in Te Arawa, in our region, from Maketu all the way to Tūrangi, that's the Te Arawa Waka region. We have a board that represents the 30 plus hapu and iwi right throughout our region. We have a board of 9 who make decisions about where those investments will be made across our region. So we've just come out of that meeting on Monday as I work for Te Mātāwai on behalf of Te Arawa. There are 13 different regions. What it means is that there is support and investment for revitalisation kaupapa from a grassroots level all the way up to partnerships with councils, with creatives, for example, Aronui. So that's essentially what Te Mātāwai is. If you wanted to have a look at a little bit more information, you can look on the website, Te Mātāwai, and it gives you a really good comprehensive Te Mātāwai, and we can make sure that gets sent through as well. What you can see on there is for example, the investments that have been received right throughout our region since the beginning of Te Mātāwai in 2017. So there has been, I would say at this point, $7 to $8 million from Te Mātāwai invested in this region alone, which doesn't sound like very much, but it's huge progress to enhance te mana o te reo Māori. They also, as well as the investments, they have a section that look at research and evaluation for lots of these projects. And in terms of what we're seeing here, for quite a small region, we're punching. We achieve quite a lot for I want to say minimal. Of course, we'd like to have a lot more investment, but for what we have and what we deliver, has been amazing. And in terms of what Rosemary talked about, our mahi did not stop in terms of what our responsibilities were to our whānau hapu and iwi. So part of our mahi was to also help entities like Tāheke Marae be able to access those fundings to deliver revitalisation programs there on their marae. There's so many different examples of it, but if you want a comprehensive understanding, have a look there at that website. Te pai?
Thank you very much, Hine. Now we'll move on from Rotorua. Thank you for your contribution. We move into 3.2 housing, and I ask JP, John Paul Gaston, to join Jude at the top table. Thank you, JP. Kōrero mai, housing.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think just between Jude and I, maybe if we just do a brief overview, hopefully it's fairly explanatory what has been written in front of you. I think the key piece here is that we had a spatial plan 2018, we had a FDS that we had to put together a few years later. One of the challenges of the legislation was it was always focused on the urban footprint, and so whilst we also then had the intensification plan change around PC9, we had lots of conversations that had to be focused in on the urban footprint, but at that time we got a lot of rich feedback on aspirations outside of the urban area. And so really this is an opportunity to consider a Te Arawa spatial plan that stretches across the full district and captures a whole bunch of that feedback and the work that's already been done. And holds together those aspirations for, I think, a lot of opportunities to see development occur. So that is the plan. Sorry, so that was the plan as far as that was concerned, leveraging off work that had already been done. I think the other piece too, and it's a comment we've made in the report, if we focus on using the FTS methodology and approach, we have the opportunity also for other councils to be engaged at a later state to really pick up the wider area of Te Arawa's interest from Makatu south.
Mr. Chairman, I would just add that having a spatial plan of whenua Māori has been part of a Te Arawa housing strategy, that one component of it for some time, and now to be partnering at executive level with JP and your team, we can now get traction on that. I think we've got several scopes. We've got scopes drawn up, but we could never secure the funding for the total project that we had in mind. The only addition I would add is that we would also see that there'd be an iwi research component to this. I think that the report's silent on that. It looks like it's going to be all sort of council and regional council driven, but there will be an iwi research component to this as well. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Open for questions now. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Aroha mai.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of things. Could you just expand on the bullet point that says provides protection for the cultural villages, Ngāpuna, Ohinemutu and Whakarewa in their current form? Could you just expand on that for me, please?
Just on the basis of the current villages are already identified in the district plan. So they have a set of rules that govern those areas, and that is also recognised in the FTS. So that's for the urban footprint piece.
So basically housing heights and what can be built around the villages, is there mainly that sort of stuff? We did it through the FDS, so yes, nothing different to that.
No, and they have their own heights and they have their own specific set of rules. I think the other part of the FDS is also talking about the change over time from the business and industrial lands that surround those areas, which actually causes the main conflicts.
Through you, Mr. Chair, do we imagine there'll be more protections put in place over time for those villages? Is that something that this committee would like to see?
I haven't seen anything more about the villages' protections changing. So it was during the review of the last district plan that would have surfaced. I think if anything we've probably expanded the ability to do developments with the new Papakainga rules outside of those village footprints.
Okay. And one more question, Mr. Chair, if I may. Does Te Arawa have a plan to become a community housing provider at all? I saw some media about funding and social housing being directed through CHIPS. I just wonder whether that's an aspiration of Te Arawa.
No. Certainly there is amongst Te Arawa some community housing providers. Te Taumata is one. but Te Tatau has got no aspirations around that sort of delivery.
I was thinking more in general, so there is one already.
Yes,
Okay,
there
thank
is.
you, Jude.
There is, and I've heard that others are thinking along those same lines.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Te manukura mea Tapsel.
Thank you very much. And I do want to acknowledge that significant support has been provided to existing iwi housing schemes as well, and it's been fantastic, especially out east side, to see not only the building of affordable housing but also affordable rentals, which is much needed. So I do just have a question regarding the housing. As part of an iwi spatial plan, and when we talk about identifying the specific iwi and hapu housing aspirations, will that also identify those who may be ready to go already? Housing continues to be a top priority for the council, but I am mindful that there is a very urgent need of housing right now for our locals, and so will, as well as the long-term aspirations, how do we also identify iwi or hapu or entities that either have land assets or cash assets and are able to, perhaps through either themselves or through funding from the government, as we've seen, be able to see homes be built within the next year?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key opportunities from this process is to look, if you look to the methodology we use for the FDS around constraints initially, and then the opportunity to make sure those areas are talked about with land trusts and iwi directly about their aspirations and where they are on that development continuum. It gives us the chance through this plan collectively to be showing government who's next and who's ready for that assistance to do the detailed design work, or who potentially could then step forward to seek grant funding to then see the next tranche of houses. Because at the moment, most of that has been focused pretty much exclusively on the urban footprint. So I think that's the real opportunity from a more strategic plan that we can show collectively back to government.
And just to add to what JP said, Te Tatau's vision and methodology was always around an action research model, so that it wasn't just waiting till the end of the project, it was actually capturing the opportunities as we rolled through, so that would capture anything like that and feed it into the process.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien and Councillor White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through you. Thank you, JP. Thank you, Jude. If you don't mind, I'd just like to follow up on my learned colleague, Councillor Brown's question. Provides for... That sounded nice, didn't it? Yeah. It sounded much nicer than elderly. Provides for the protection of the cultural villages of Ngāpuna. Could I just ask on that particular point? So our previous acting CE, Ms. Gina Rangi, attended a meeting down in Ngāpuna of the local, and it was streamed online and I watched online. I didn't attend in person, and also some of our staff. And it seems to me that there was a great deal of feedback to council from those who turned up, saying that they're not very particularly happy over a long period of time, this isn't just recent, how council has treated that area. So could I just seek a little bit more from the statement you put here, and I appreciate it's at one line, when you say protecting the current form, what about those communities that would seek greater change? Admittedly not tomorrow, because we're not going to build a new wastewater treatment plant anywhere else tomorrow, but how are we going to, are there plans for address those concerns over, such as Ngāpuna, over a long period of time?
It'd be good to use Ngāpuna as an example. So the FDS does recognise the desire to see industrial land, and it's been acknowledged within the FDS of the negative positioning of heavy industrial next to a residential area. So there is a signal in that we need to look at how we enable industrial exit from the Ngāpuna area over time. So that's one of the recognitions of those areas. So that is why this council agreed that we needed to go forward with one of the recommendations from the FDS, which was an industrial plan change to make available more land. We're coming back with some more information about some of the other tools that could be used, but it's certainly a long direction of travel. It's not something that would happen, but it has been recognised and it is being supported.
I suppose that's just where I'm clarifying, because the wording there doesn't quite seem to me that we could be open up to, you know, trying to accommodate further change for those affected. But
I think
maybe that wasn't an intention of this particular.
No, and I think this is the summary of a very simple set of descriptions in half a page as opposed to what's written actually in the FDS.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Mr. White. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm interested in, I think you made the comment, JP, around collective opportunity. And I think therein lies the big problem, is what does that look like? Because at the moment, I think that's much needed in terms of understanding where that collective action in housing is coming from and when can it happen, because it's not there at the moment, I'll be blunt. So I think that's a big challenge. First of all, understanding, I guess within Arawa, for example, where the collectivity is, because there's bits and pieces at the moment, and to be frank, some of those bits and pieces have been at each other, not necessarily collective. You've got the urban and you've got the rural as well, you know, and there's those who want to develop their rural estate. And they've got land available and got resources available to do just that. So it's about getting a better picture of what the environment looks like and how that collaborative effort can come together. I go on about collective action because I think that is absolutely necessary in order to make hay, you know, and get this thing done. Because without that, you're just going to get all sorts of argy-bargy and picking away at it, and it doesn't actually take off. And I think that's the challenge for the partnership, is to look at how to, as best as possible, weave that collective notion in terms of what we're looking at and how we do and our approach to it. I think I just have a view that there would be an appetite out there to try and work this collectivity together and give a bit more signature to it, if you like, as opposed to opposition. That's my thoughts. And for the partnership moving forward.
Councillor Patterson and Councillor Kiriopa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the stumbling blocks for smaller holding whānau is going to a bank and saying, I want to build XYZ. This is family-owned land. Who owns the title is the question from a bank. And they say, well, we can't prove that. And they say, well, we're not going to give you the money then. How are we going to... Is that being addressed, the roadblock from the banks, as far as not so much the large developments, but small developments? Are we addressing that at all with the banks?
Councillor, I would enthusiastically hope we could, but we can't, singularly. There's a bunch of things that iwi land trusts need to do and set up the structures around a piece of land that's intended to have homes built on it. So there's a governance structures. There's a whole bunch of steps which can assist in getting the confidence of banks to lend or provide funding. And that's some of the information we're putting together in the toolkit. And is available from groups like TPK, but there is always a challenge in getting that kind of funding directly. So I think part of this is to make sure we're also promoting some of the information that helps entities identify what their governance structure needs to be and what they need to have in place to assist them in that pathway. But as an individual council, we've got limited ability to change that.
Thank you.
Mr. Paul.
Tēnā koe te himana, just to add to JP's kōrero regarding the challenges of multiple ownership Māori land. The team here at, and JP's already mentioned it, staff have been working collectively on a papakonga toolkit that looks to collaborate with all of those agencies that have those varying responsibilities, and one of that is actually the funding, how that funding can be addressed. In particular, the exemplar for papakainga development in the country is actually Tauranga Moana, and I will flag that actually under Smart Growth, which is the Western Bays spatial plan kind of thing, they've got a Māori spatial plan, so I'm just flagging that there, and that leads to those identifying those challenges, but actually providing some solutions. So I know of 2 banks that are now starting to look to address those concerns of multiple owned land and being able to leverage off that to build. So that will be included in Rotorua Lakes Council's papakainga toolkit, which we've been working on. JP staff have actually been leading out.
Kapai, thank you. One more question, if I may.
Certainly.
That leads to when I attended your presentation on Te Arawa 2050 vision at the library, Te Taru, and you talked about the establishment of a Te Arawa Bank. Is that making any progress?
I wonder whether this would come up, Mr. Chair, if I may answer it. Yeah, I mean, the simple fact is that land trusts and corporations, Te Arawa, put a lot of money into term deposits. The view is there an opportunity with the banks to establish a model, say, for example, community banks that are out there at the moment, that will enable that sort of collaboration to happen. A lot of work's been done on it, actually, and there was some good vibes from a couple of the banks, the community-type banks out there. And I'm aware that a lot of work has been done in that space, hasn't been realised as yet. But there was a lot of promise in it, and I still think it's worthwhile looking at where that's got to. And, so when they talk about a Te Arawa Bank, an iwi bank, it's a bank that actually delivers to the people in a particular way, that the various investors in the bank, for example, land trusts and the corporations, would have expectations, of course, of security around that in the context of that's work, but it actually is done from an iwi perspective, with iwi money. That's harboured by the community bank, can be ring-fenced and channeled through particular structures that are quite different to what mainstream banks might want. That's the intent of it. Okay, so it's still alive out there. It's a question of whether it can be pulled together.
Kapai, thank you.
Councillor Kereopa.
Thank you. The report includes background on the Rotorua Future Development Strategy, but I notice it doesn't include background info on the Te Arawa Housing Strategy. My first question is, can we include in these reports both the relevant Rotorua Lakes Council community outcomes and the relevant Te Arawa Vision 2050 outcomes related to each of these key projects, please, moving forward? Thank you. And my second question, the Te Arawa Housing Strategy, as cited within the Te Arawa Vision Strategy, is focused, from what I recall, as being a part of and feeding into it and reading it once it was completed, is focused on the resilience of Te Arawa's existing papakainga. Would you agree with that, Jude? Of our existing residential communities? That's how I see it. I want to say I support a 100% an iwi spatial plan, but the proposed outcomes appear to me to be focused on new housing development on Māori-owned land. And I would say, as Mayor Tapsell has mentioned, there has already been significant support from council and government departments working with iwi entities on housing developments on iwi-owned land. JP, Paul and I have just finished a meeting with iwi representatives highlighting that the need for our hapu and iwi is support for an iwi spatial plan incorporating the Te Arawa housing strategy within our existing papakainga. So my second question is, can the pilot papakainga project be focused on an existing papakainga such as Te Koitu?
The papakainga rules and the papakainga pilot, I thought, was for development. That's what the toolkit was for. So your call if you want to change it to something else, but I don't know what that looks like. It's because it's the housing, the wellbeing compass, and the housing compass was about a new development and the design of that new development.
That was my understanding too, Councillor, that it was taking the toolkit and working with whānau hapu, using the toolkit and testing it and developing it, were you thinking that one would test it on an existing papakainga and work in retrospect?
That's what I was just saying, was that's where the need is. There is already enough work going on within this council to support iwi development on iwi, not even iwi development, housing development on iwi-owned land. The need is for our existing papakainga, which are getting broken down through the future development strategy, as was shown. And I know I can see questions, but the social fabric of those communities is being broken down. And that's what we've just heard in a meeting that we've just come from. That's where the need is for our hapu and iwi. So I just don't support focusing on continuing development when our existing papakainga are struggling under the intensification that's happening.
See, this is where you're conflating several different terms to describe something. So we've just come from a meeting talking about a suburban area that is a papakainga, but is actually made up of a whole bunch of blocks of privately owned land and privately owned existing development. The intent, I thought, around the papakainga was to look at toolkit was to look at whenua Māori land being developed for new housing. So to go back into an existing suburban area is, and I'll dredge up a term that I've used previously, which is locality planning, which is a different kind of project. So with a lens being taken to use the wellbeing compass. So that to me is a different project from the spatial planning conversation that we're having here, and looking for new developments that could use the toolkit to do their designs and shape the outcomes being achieved by that. So I think we're talking two different things. So if we're looking at a new project, that would, in my head, be a new project, and I'm going to look bravely across at Paul to see if he can contribute to that discussion.
Kia ora. And I think it comes down to the definition, in particular this case, and what the proposal's in front of you now, but pertains to the Māori Land Court's definition of a papakainga. So absolutely, if the elected members of this committee wish us to expand on the other terminology as we described, Councillor Kiriopa, the Māori worldview of a papakainga is that of the Ohinematu village, of that of Whakariwariwa, of that of Te Koutu, in a traditional Māori village, as opposed to what we're referring to in this proposal is about identifying those Māori lands that sat outside the FDS, i.e., because we've also received a very strong call through the process of developing the papakainga toolkit, those areas to the north, like out at Pikiao and Rotorua, who are looking to develop multi-owned Māori land and under the papakainga definition. So open to that. There's a decision for this committee to direct staff, but what's proposed is that of the Māori Land Court definition of papakainga as opposed to. So, kea koutou.
Can I propose then, because what you're talking about at Mauria and they're existing papakainga, so that would encompass both. It would encompass an existing papakainga who's wanting to do future development, so we could do the housing, the Te Arawa housing strategy, iwi spatial mapping, which would be looking at both. So choosing an area. So then my question is, can the pilot papakainga project be focused on an area that has existing papakainga and is looking to expand?
There's been no sites identified and no decisions made, so yes, certainly, but I wouldn't want to limit someone from putting their hand up to say they should be the pilot. I think we were looking for the volunteers to be part of that pilot.
Okay. Thank you. Now, Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Third bullet point from the bottom, page 14. Guide priorities for council development support resource to create a pipeline of shovel-ready projects. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
That really picks up on what Her Worship the Mayor mentioned. So we have a development support team, and I've presented previously about what my team does, and so they particularly put effort into supporting iwi groups or land trusts to navigate through some of those first steps. So we're concluding at the moment some assistance that we've provided, which eventually led to a particular trust obtaining some direct funding through Ministry of Housing and Urban Development to undertake all of their preliminary works through to getting resource consent. So they've now got to a point of receiving resource consents, at which point they are in what is kind of seen as that development pipeline where they've taken those first steps. They have consents, which makes them very attractive for partnerships with government and other external funders to try and see their homes developed. So that's one entering the pipeline. We've got several other projects that we're working closely with to support them get through those initial stages of concepts, taking some of those first elements that are in that Papakainga toolkit about making sure their governance is in place, and working through so that we actually end up with a situation over the next few years that if government allocates further money to Māori housing development particularly, or they're in a good position to access funding through banks, that they have proceeded through getting all those pieces in place, understanding what their infrastructure requirements are, getting through the consenting pathway, and being ready for development ready.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I propose at this time to take a brief 10-15 minute break before we go into a big taki sustainable wastewater management mode o te wai. So just 10 past 2, back at 10 past 2. Kia ora koutou. We will recommence our Te Arawa meeting, session meeting underway. Now what I would like to ask, invite Stavros Michael to join Jude Penny at the top desk there, please. Kia ora Stavros, kei te pēhea koe.
Kei te pai, Chair, thank you.
Kia ora, kia ora. Well, there we are, and we are on the Mauri o te Wai. Kōrero mai.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The report is, it's in a simple form, but it canvasses the fact that the Council and Total will collaborate on a whole range of foundation services, especially those services that impact directly on the health of our environment and the health of the community, and obviously the future direction of our districts. Under the outcomes, you see that we still would expect from this committee to make some determined decisions as to how the committee will support the Rotorua Lakes Council to achieve an effective engagement for the wastewater projects, and obviously Total staff will join Rotorua Lakes Council staff on that engagement plan. Also, we expect some direction from the committee as to how the Te Tatu or Te Arawa will work with our staff to build understanding and further report on the impacts of the proposed water reforms on iwi, hapu and the wider community. And obviously we have spoken earlier in the previous committee meeting or the inaugural meeting setting the vision for 2050, the concept of Te Maori o Te Wai, and the committee would recommend to engage in further discussions to actually put some clear definitions of those aspects that will inform future projects going forward. The subject matters of sustainable waste, water management obviously are matters that impact and affect everyone in our community, because wastewater is generated by everyone, and a number of significant projects are currently underway, including the completion of the Tarawera sewage reticulation scheme, the finalization of Rotoiti-Rotoma sewage reticulation, the Rotorua City wastewater treatment plant, which is a vital part of our sewage network, especially as pertaining to achieving standards for treatment, and obviously to safeguard the viability and the health of the community or environment. And obviously, wastewater network comprises a significant portion of assets, including pipelines and pump stations and so on. And of course, that is an ongoing strategy that aims to address the risks within our 30-year infrastructure strategy, and in particular with the fact that we are having an aging network. We have increasing pressures, we have increasing population. You discussed earlier the possibility of growth and community and housing. And obviously, as a community acquires more housing, in some earlier reports, we had about 500 new houses built in the last year and more to be built this year. So all that network and its critical components are vital importance to our environment and our community health, and obviously to the ongoing ability to accommodate and enable housing in whatever shape and form the Council and the committee may see fit. So I will leave the report, and between myself and Jude, be very happy to respond to any questions members may have with regards to this subject matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now we're open for any pārtai, any questions from colleagues. Kōrero mai. Questions? Sorry, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just relating to local water done well, I don't really see how that's mentioned in here. Maybe I didn't read it properly. My concern is that down the track in 5 years, the future council may decide to form a CCO. How would that work with the iwi that actually have the rights to the springs. Ngāti Kiroa, Ngāti Rangiwewehi, there are major water supplies. Surely there must be some form of consideration given to their perspective and their ownership of that wai, and transferring it to some external body. Is there any problem with that?
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I think we canvassed those kind of challenges in earlier discussions, but at a high level, one of the reasons we call these challenges of the proposed local water dam well reforms is that a lot of emphasis has been placed onto the managing the liability of operating and maintaining significant levels of assets. However, if decisions will be made, and these haven't been made yet, obviously that's why we're out in consultation, and that's why Council will consider the various implications. One of those considerations would be that as you transfer assets and liabilities, you also would expect to novate agreements Council has made with iwi and with regards to co-joint management or with co-consenting water sources, and you would expect that any shape or form of an entity will have to accept the ongoing responsibility to maintain and reinforce those relationships. As I said, we haven't made these decisions yet. We're consulting about it, but that will be part and parcel of the logistics of migrating from what we do at the moment to what we possibly can do in the future. And I think elected members would be, I'm sure they'll be very keen and very aware, very sensitive to actually not to make decisions that will compromise the relationship foundations that have been built over many years.
Thank you. That's a very comprehensive answer. I guess it leads to my next question, if I may, Mr. Chair. We've seen an example of a council in Queenstown utilising the Works Act to discharge their treated wastewater into the Shotover River. Now, I imagine that there would be significant community pushback if ever the decision was made to do a similar thing to Lake Rotorua. So how, going forward, can we see this committee having a say in making sure that that never happens, or mitigating that from happening?
I will briefly respond from my perspective, but Jude, I'm sure, would be able to sort of step in and reinforce it. It's a bit difficult to sort of to articulate a position on a hypothetical scenario for which we're not there yet. However, we have a whole range of obligations in terms of the RMA. I know that now the government is developing national standards for discharges in freshwater systems or any other environments, and obviously those are minimum standards that need to be attained before you do anything, something like that. But also the fact that you really need to agree and secure the consent and the collaboration of stakeholders in that respect. It seems to me to be a logical aspect of working with whoever considers to be an affected party to make these kind of decisions. As I said, this is a hypothetical scenario. We're not there, but I imagine the nature of this committee and the collaboration we anticipate to have, it would try to prevent situations like that will happen as a de facto situation instead of actually a product of genuine consideration.
I really don't have anything to add to your comment on that hypothetical situation. But getting back to the CCO scenario, Councillor, I would imagine that this council, if they were to establish a CCO, would take all those sorts of factors definitely into account when you establish the CCO and when you decided on the makeup of your membership of the CCO.
Thank you. Just my concern from that, which I've made public before, is that handing over the responsibility to a board when the elected members no longer have any say, and that would include the Te Tātou. The board would be completely independent, so we would have no say other than hiring and firing. So that's my concern. But anyway, thank you.
Questions? Councillor Kereopa?
It's not a question, but I see that the outcome is that Te Tātou will work with Council to consult with iwi on the government's water reforms, which I consider to be business as usual, what the Council needs to be doing anyway. I'm quite astounded that that's what the focus is going to be for this, considering we have ecocide happening every couple of years on the Utuhina stream via Council stormwater drains, to Kōmero to Tuhina Newsday OIA to get information and saw that there were 57 sewage overflows into the Utuhina stream within a 6-year period. Obviously there's been the public breakdown in council iwi relationships over Roto Kākahi. Surely the outcome of any sustainable wastewater management partnership should be to engage in discussions with iwi to find solutions around the impacts of council's wastewater and stormwater infrastructure on Te Mauri o Te Wai.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if the question there or a statement. Is there a question there?
Well, that's my question there. Can the outcome be discussions with iwi and engagement to find solutions around the impacts of council's wastewater and stormwater infrastructure on Te Mauri o Te Wai?
Thank you, Councillor Kiriopa. Can I remind councillors that the council is responsible and the owner of an extensive wastewater network, and you do define non-financial KPIs every year and every long-term plan. And at the moment, you do have a non-financial KPI that accepts that no network is ever going to be 100% fault-free, and you actually assign a KPI which accepts a 10 faults per 1,000 connections to the network per year. For the last 6 or 7 years, we always meet that KPI. If elected members want to achieve a 0 faults in the network, then it's up to elected members to consider how much they need to invest in achieving that 0 defects into the network. The second question about the relationship with Lake Rotokakahi Board of Controls, I will stay silent with that because I do not agree with that.
Can I have an answer to that question, whether the outcome could be changed to the to discussions with iwi and engagement to find solutions?
Well, it's not my decision to make that call. If the outcomes of KPIs for your sewage, for the sewage network or network require to go to 0 faults for 1,000 connections, officers have only one avenue to advise you on the cost and implications of that. If elected members decide to adopt that kind of KPI in the full knowledge of the cost implications, then officers have no option but to give effect to it.
Nobody's asking for 0 impacts. We're asking us for actual discussions to occur between council and mana whenua to find potential solutions around the impacts of council's wastewater and stormwater infrastructure. Solutions could be the replanting that we've been asking for how long? No one's asking for 0 or expecting anything that's unreasonable. Or, discussions with iwi around council's wastewater and stormwater and how we might be able to improve things is not unreasonable. Obviously asking for no overflows into our streams is unreasonable. No one's asked for that. Surely this partnership is about not just supporting council's business as usual. Surely it's about meeting some of the aspirations of iwi and hapu, which is actually what iwi and hapu rightly or wrongly, assume is the job of Te Tato to support.
Thank you, Councillor Kirioba. Again, we might, if I want to migrate from the sewage network to the stormwater network, Councillor Kirioba, you are aware that we just went through a process of applying for the comprehensive stormwater consent. We went through a process of engagement and feedback, and we went through a process of determination by a commissioner on those conditions. One of those conditions is to develop catchment management plans for 7 catchments for the district, and one of the requirements is that for each of these catchment management plans, for iwi and Manawhenua to be involved to develop those catchment management plans. So the answer is yes, we will be engaging with Manawhenua and iwi to develop each one of these catchment management plans in order to satisfy the resource consent that we have just been applied for and has been granted to us. Yes, the answer is yes.
Great, and that covers the stormwater, but we're talking about sustainable wastewater. So can this be an opportunity to have the same discussions on top of those stormwater conversations?
Mr. Chair, if I can jump in here.
Thank
you. I know in the first meeting when we were developing the priority areas and water was obviously the one that got brought up. I also recall in those discussions, though, because that is quite a large scope of work between wastewater, stormwater and reticulated water, that the immediate focus for now should be on the wastewater project. So I do hear that that is a concern, and potentially there could be even further discussions on top of what the stormwater, comprehensive stormwater consent was. I do also want to acknowledge, though, that the role of the Charua Vision Committee is to help support and advocate for, and perhaps in particular areas or streams, we do also have a direct relationship with those iwi and hapu. And I have very consistently heard Te Tato Charua emphasise that they do not represent those, well, they do not override any direct relationships that we do already have with iwi and hapu. So perhaps what I suggest is we continue to focus on the engagement on the wastewater project. The partnership with Te Tato Charua will be very, very influential in making sure that we can engage correctly or better, and certainly welcome councillors' feedback on how we can do so moving forward as well. But just wanted to note that that is the reason why we're currently only focusing on wastewater, but that's always something we could discuss at the next reiteration of what our priorities would be.
I had your name down also. Did you want to continue on with your question? Okay. Councillor White.
Mr. Chair, as the recommendation reads, includes supporting engagement and consultation as required. I personally think that is a much needed combination that does need to happen to bring in the best of what Tato has to offer in that particular space, the proximity they have to their members, to the iwi, etc. And I think it's an important aspect that we can always help to improve on, and I'll put it that way. And because I think there has been so much in recent times where information has been screwed, twisted, and all sorts of things happening, that requires some shaping and forming of that conversation so that our people out there can deal with the issue based on facts, not conjecture necessarily. And I just put that as a statement. What I would see Tato's role is in actually helping to improve the quality of that engagement. And that's what I would expect them to do in this space. So I see it actually relevant. We can overcomplicate it by trying to get into too much detail of how this might fashion its way out. But I like to think that there is a pragmatic approach, is improving, and having those conversations that gets us to that space is where I'd be looking at Tato having that conversation with the Lakes Council around the table. This is about how we can collectively act together to improve the situation. Not to say this is your role and your function. When you're in a partnership, I see both parties coming together to deal with that. To me, that's the pragmatic approach, the appropriate approach, philosophical approach, call it what you will. But, from my perspective, get the job done. Help our people, help our communities to understand what we're trying to do. We may not have got there, but intent is to get there. So that's my view, and I'll stand by that.
Comments? Yeah. Questions or comments? Oh, sorry. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question which is probably more for our CE, but I'm happy for anyone that wants to ask. I appreciate we can only deal with the laws that central government dictates to us or allows us to in legislation. But it seems to me there seems to be a greater reliance on central government through this fast-tracking process and allowing in the terms of, say, national infrastructure development. How are we going to protect what the idea of this, should the future council determine to keep this, if we're not part of some of those discussions and decisions, how can we best represent what this committee is supposed to be trying to advocate for?
I'll try and answer the learned councillor's question as succinctly as I can, but if others want to add to it, then by all means. We, through the discussions when setting up the terms of reference for this committee, it was acknowledged that council is limited in its scope and Te Tato is limited in scope. And where we arrived at those 5 projects was to try and give substantial enough projects, but still with narrow enough focus that we could actually deliver results, that this committee could deliver results and show progress against specific objectives. So if I understand your question, what's the role of this committee and council to jointly protect maybe local interests, particularly of Te Arawa, Hapu and Iwi and other entities, that through all of the legislative change that's going on around us, that wasn't identified as policy advocacy wasn't identified as a project. However, the terms of reference allow for when one topic is complete for us to add another. So for example, later this year, the elections topic will be over and move on, and it might be appropriate then for this committee to consider that the topic that you've outlined perhaps, and consider how this committee then sets up that work stream after one of the current topics drops off. So I'm not sure if that helps, but I think again it was important to set up the terms of reference so that it's within council's scope, so that we can show some results rather than pick up topics that perhaps were too large to necessarily show any progress in. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you answered that the best you could. Well done. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Māori OTY. Could someone help me with the translation and what's different with Te Mana OTY, which was was that the previous government's?
This has been covered and explained already, but if you Mauri o Te Wai, life force of the water, would that be accurate? Yeah.
What was that, sorry?
Mauri o Te Wai meaning like life of the water, life force of the water.
Mauri is the correct term to use in regards to our whenua, our wai, our waters, our lands, as opposed to mana o Te Wai. Right?
Okay, so looking at the list that has been prepared here, top of the list is Tarawera sewage reticulation. I mean, Māori OTY sounds aspirational, which is, I mean, everybody would support improved water quality. Comes at a cost though, so there's a balancing exercise that elected members surely would have to weigh up when they're considering these sorts of projects. I'm wondering about the merits of the role of elected members versus the role of this committee. How do we reconcile what elected members should be weighing up and considering and what this committee is about?
I can't answer that. Councillor Brown might be able to help.
Thank goodness.
I'll give Ngāti Pākehā a version if you like. I put forward Te Māori o Te Wai, so you are restoring Māori is the essence, as I understand it, of the water. So I think you've struck it right. There is a challenge between what we can afford and what we can do, and the way I take it is to think over time, right? When I was a kid swimming in Hannah's Bay, I saw a tiko float past and I'll never forget it. There was raw sewage going into the lake at one point in our history. Sad history, but it was our history. And now we're at a point where baton holders, and we are spending millions on wastewater treatment plants. So over time, I can see wetland restoration opportunities, but there are constraints, financial constraints, and I think as baton holders you take that into account, but I would like to think this committee wants to see us continue that good work into the future. Does that answer your question? Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your indulgence.
Yes, it's the interesting thing, following on from your comments, Councillor Brown, is following the policy of Māori or Te Mana o Te Wai, the Tarawera residents in this case seem to be the ones that have to pick up the tab in no small way to implement this policy, or am I reading that wrong?
I think it is aspirational, through you, Mr. Chair, if that's okay. You're right, it is aspirational, and they are carrying too much of the load in my personal view, but we've got consultation out for that and we'll see where it lands.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Any further questions or comments on Māori o Te Wai? Ka pai. Chairman of Te Tātou, kōrero mai.
Tēnā koe, Chairman of 2050 Committee, me ana kia koe through you. At the risk of stating the obvious, first of all, Te Tātou Aotearoa was excited to work alongside our RLC staff in pursuit of the outcomes and the aspirations under Māori o Te Wai. I would just voice or bring to people's attention the limited resource that Te Tātou Aotearoa has to put into supporting the support that we will give to RLC staff in pursuit of these aspirations. As Jude pointed out earlier in today's proceedings, we are light on the ground, but we're heavy in terms of enthusiasm, passion, and commit and willingness to get the mahi done. So simply to draw attention to the limited resource that we have, but we will continue to work as best as we can alongside our council colleagues to not only achieve the Te Māori o Te Wai, but also the other projects here as well. Koina taku kōrero, ngā mihi.
Ka pai tō kōrero. Any further pātai? All right, thank you. We're going on to agenda item. Thank you, Stavros. 3.4 election engagement. I call on Debbie Cossa. Come and join us. And Ricky Dunn. There it is. You can be Malcolm in the middle there, Rick. Welcome and kōrero mai. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. We're really excited to be working alongside Jude and Kayla and Rosemary and the Te Tātou board members on this exciting project to increase participation in our local elections. I'd also like to say I'd like to tautoko what Jude said earlier. Our team has thoroughly enjoyed working with Jude and Kayla, and particularly on the induction of the Te Tātou board members. We took a lot of learnings from it, and we're actually going to be, putting what we've learned into our induction for councillors after the election. So already our team is seeing outcomes from this partnership, which is really great for us. We've set ourselves a big goal, maybe an aspirational goal for the upcoming elections, where we would like to see participation up at over 50%. We were 46.46% last time around. While we've been going up each triennium for the last 3 trienniums, getting over 50 is going to be a hard task. You can see in the report that last time round our general ward participation was 52.9, rural ward participation was 53.1, and our Māori ward was 32.9. So we know from statistics that pretty much the older you get, the more likely you are to vote. And we think that with working with Te Tātou, we have got a real opportunity to, push that 32.9% up, and also have a better opportunity at actually engaging with all the youth in our community too, and see this as, it's an opportunity that we're really pleased to see. And already we had Kayla at our meeting last week of our project team, and, she brought some really good learnings with it, and just seeing Kayla interacting with our marketing and communications team on, great ideas, everybody in the room was excited about what we can do. So it's a big ask, and, we may not succeed, but we'll be giving it our best, and we feel like we've got a much better opportunity to get over that 50% with our partners here. And, if we don't get there this time, we'll, be trying different things together next time to get over the line. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Sure.
Not a lot to add, really. Te Tātou is about to activate very strongly in this space. It's critical for Te Arawa and for Māori to participate in both the governance of the city and enrolling and standing and voting. So we've got a strategy already developed, and we'll be working with key influencers and using Rosemary and some of our other media gurus, and in particular some of our board members and our rangatahi reps to try and engage the young people in our community, to make them see that actually participating in local government is worthwhile. Often they don't see that they're going to make a difference, or it's a beast, it's a big machine that's going to do what it's going to do anyway. So what Te Tātou's strategy is to try and reframe that and change the mindsets, and get particularly our young people engaged in governance and of the city, and enrolling, particularly now, enrolling, and then standing to get the best candidates standing for these leadership positions, and then to vote, of course, get out and And I think we've got the little orange man going, haven't we, Rick? You the orange man, I think we've got. So Te Tato's got our strategy, but we're working really closely with council to make sure that we can streamline everything and get the profile up.
Thank you. Jude, Rick, you want to add something?
So through the Chair, just agree totally with Jude and Deb around that, but I think we have the advantage of our partners having the same goals that we're working towards, and Jude's experience, previous experience with elections, so I think we're on a good track to provide some good results for the community.
Very good. Okay, before opening it up for any questions or comments or anything, can I ask the first one on this? So not only the election, but the referendum leaflet will come out together with, will it? Except for regional council, because the Māori councillors are in statute, aren't they?
That's right, thank you. And answering your question, yes, definitely. The voting packs will come out through New Zealand Post in the mail. And this year there will be the normal voting document, voting for a mayor and members in the wards or candidates in the wards, and also the poll document will be included in that.
Okay. Open up for questions and all comments. Thank you, Councillor Taru White.
Yeah. Kia ora, Mr. Chair. Just considering the latest census, 43% of the population was Rotorua Māori. And I think this is a time to probably activate what is planned to ensure that we get as many as possible involved in the elections and voting. So, you know, that's just the numbers game right now. It's pretty high. Highest it's ever been in the context of Māori population census for Rotorua. You know, well, not ever been. It was high one time, but in modern times now, that's a large number, 43%. And when I look at the numbers that are turning up to vote, pretty pitiful, really. And so there's an opportunity to really improve on that, and hopefully in the whole process, have them really more engaged in the process of councils and the decisions that are made. So I'm just putting that on the table as that this timing is right, really, to start engaging more prolifically and encourage people to get out and vote.
Councillor O'Brien and then Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through the Chair. Rick, could I, probably more directed at you, could I ask, so the initiatives you've talked about today that the report deals with, does central government provide us with funding for that, or is this out of our budget from ratepayers?
Yes, it's Rotorua Lakes Council budget.
Okay, so no assistance from central government at all?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. Just first question is based on the statistics showing an improvement in the voter turnout in the last 3 elections, gradual increase, and the last one being 46.46%, which was, you know, a percentage and a half increase. Any indication as to why that would have been? Did we, as a council, did you do anything different, or do you think it was the sentiments of the community that got them motivated to vote?
Thank you, through the Chair. There's 2 parts to that. I think, you know, when there's, you know, interest in a mayoralty and different candidates and the ward system, that will motivate some to vote. I think the other thing is that we've been noticing a decline from the service from New Zealand Post with regard to their street receivers, so the community are finding it more difficult to find somewhere to post their voting document. And so as a national incentive, and it's building to provide orange bins that you've noticed, like the orange rubbish type bins, suitably signed in supermarkets, gas stations. We had them out in the schools. So I think that was also a factor, that we were providing more opportunity in places that people go to frequently, like supermarkets, to place their voting documents in. And, you know, like, we're looking forward to improving on that. I think just touching on the Tauranga City Council's by-election recently, not talking about their turnout, but talking about the votes that were actually cast. 86% of them were put into the orange bins. And similar in the 2022 election, not the voter turnout, but the number of documents, voting documents that were put in Wellington were 83% through the orange bins. So we're focusing more on those this year as well.
So you're basically saying that the people trust putting their vote in some receptacle rather than sticking it through the mail?
And it's not so much the trust, they're very secure, we haven't got an issue with those, but it's really just having an opportunity or a place to go. If you have a look at your local shopping centres, not many of them have those post receptacles where you used to be able to place a letter.
Kapai, thank you. One more question, if I may.
Sure.
So, obviously, an important issue being the referendum on the Māori wards this time around. That will no doubt get many people out to vote because they'll have an opinion one way or another. Just on the issue of getting a question on that ballot, I note in the newsroom story today it says Rotorua City Mayor Anita Baker is asking her council to put a question on the ballot paper this year. Do we, as councils, have the right to put a question on a referendum that's got nothing to do with the referendum that's been organised by the government?
No.
No. Okay, thank you.
Good questions. Any further questions or comments? Thank you, Emi. Kōrero wā.
Kia ora, through you, Mr. Chair. The information you provided indicates incremental increases since 2013. One might suggest from that at each election, council have done something or some things different. Are you able to comment on the extent to which you've reflected on previous strategies and perhaps identified one thing, because there might have been a number in particular that stood out that we need to do differently this time around? So, two-part question: if you reflected on previous strategies, then what's one thing that's really stood out and said we need to do this differently? Kia ora.
Thank you through the chair. Thank you for the question. It's definitely, and we've had about, I think, 3 project team meetings, and certainly looking at ways of doing things differently, including potentially going out to the community at an event. So if there's an event out in the community, whether it be sporting or the like, we can resource that with staff and take an orange bin out there, advertise it, take an orange bin out there and collect votes that way.
Kapai, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you. And Rick, how long is the period when the postal votes are out till election date?
Thank you. The voting documents are delivered on the 9th of September, start being delivered on the 9th of September through to the 22nd of September. September, 9th to the 22nd. Yeah.
And how creative are councillors allowed to be in trying to encourage voting and all that, instead of, are we allowed to have a vehicle or a truck going around with a polling booth on the back and people dropping them in, or Mr. Whippy's van or something and toot and bring people out, put their voting papers in? They sit up on the fridge otherwise.
Yeah. No, thank you. Good question, Chair. You can't go out and collect votes. However, you can certainly promote the election process.
And also, our CE will be putting out his pre-election report and the roadshow, and potentially we can work alongside that as well.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. Just at the top of the page here, second paragraph, staff will bring expertise, advice, additional resources with a focus on encouraging Māori voter turnout. In isolation, that could arguably sound a wee bit discriminatory, so perhaps we could cover off what you're doing to encourage voter turnout for non-Māori and what's different. What are you doing anything for promoting Māori voters that you're not doing for non-Māori?
No, we're running a campaign to get people to enrol, and secondly to get candidates and then to vote. So that's through the community. We're rolling that message across to everybody. You may want to comment on their strategy around Te Tātou.
Te Tātou has a separate strategy, Councillor Lee, and it is very much focused on, we're running our Te Tātou elections as well, so it's focused on Te Arawa and Māori, and making sure that that part of your community participates, because you'll see in the statistics here that they're way lower than the rest of the Rotorua district community. So it's really important that those stats come up and that percentage increases. So we've got two strategies running in tandem, parallel.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Patterson.
Just a point of clarification, if I may, Mr. Chair. Just looking at the presentation that Warwick Lamp gave to us the other day, just for those listening, the actual closing of voting, my understanding, is 11th of October at noon. Correct? Yeah, thank you.
So 11th is a Saturday? That day. Any further part-time questions for our election important this year? Any final comments to Debbie, Rick and Jude? Deb? Do you
Just one comment, and the members haven't touched on it. We're really careful, I personally am, to make sure that members and candidates aren't promoted through this process. This process is very much delivering for Andrew and his role of voter turnout and participation. So I just wanted to make sure that members were aware that that stream of technically delivering the election is sitting with Warwick and Rick as your electoral officer and deputy electoral officer. What our team is doing and what Te Tātou is doing is all around voter turnout, participation and rolling. So I just wanted to reassure you that we're scrupulous on making sure that those two streams of work are very separate.
Thank you very much, Deb and Rick and Jude, for the election engagement, the report on that, and all the best with your mahi out there in the community. And now invite Jude to overview the project of technology and innovation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, I'm not going to dig too deeply into the detail of this. This is one that the committee identified, and what Te Tātou's done is put some words into this paper, but really the outcome, it's around collaboration, it's around partnerships, it's around technology and innovation actually running across, and Councillor Patterson mentioned it around the Rotorua app and some examples there of how it can enable greater, I suppose, efficiency and effectiveness in terms of the business of the council. So we would like to explore innovative partnerships and partners that we can work with, Te Tatau Council can work with in this whole space of innovation and creativity. And Te Taru mentioned earlier the Te Manuka example of a project, and in my mind that very much fits into this innovation. It was a wonderful creative project. It was about picking up a chunk of central government business, placing it into this community, and Te Arawa delivering on that. It wasn't a competitive tendering thing, but it was an innovative, creative way to deliver a chunk of government service. So I think in this space there are opportunities that we don't even know about, that we can explore and we can look at as we collaborate and partner with Rotorua NZ and our tourism industry and just the wider district. So I think that's it, Mr. Chairman. It's not a quick, by this date we're going to deliver this app. It's more a way of working, a way of operating that encourages technology, innovation, and recognises the waves as they present themselves. And I know that your Chief Executive is already looking at engagement, participation by way of a technology-enabled solution. So I'd like to invite our board member who works in this space with Kayla and me just to provide additional comment, Mr. Chairman, if that's all right.
That's fine.
Potawa, are you there, mate?
Yeah, kia ora.
Ko rera mai.
Ka pai, kia ora te kia mana, kia ora te kai whakatiwhera rangitiania. E te tuakana tēnā tātou. Rotorua is a place of innovative thinkers, but we're falling behind, and you can just look at what's happening with AI. So part of what we're doing is trying to encourage collaboration with council and Te Tātou, but also with our community who face issues, and the industry who are looking for solutions, and partners out there who might want to help us with some of these problems that we face. So the idea, we've got a lot covered in the document. Actually, there was another document before the document, and that document had footnotes. I'll get those to you soon. Most of it comes from our passion. We're all passionate about innovation, but we need things like digital infrastructure. And I know wastewater treatment needs IT, public climate, housing, smart houses, electric vehicle. But we're all in a silo. So what I'm hoping is that we can create a partnership team that can bring our group together as like an innovation subcommittee, but also with the wider groups, the wider community, the wider industry, and the government. I've been watching with great interest Minister Collins and her push into aeronautics, into space, into data centres. I think we need to line up what's happening nationally, regionally and locally, but provide the leadership which is both now focused with a game plan and a realistic timeline. Get that dream team together. And I've spoken to especially Councillor Lee and our love and our passion for the solutions that locals can develop. And we can face a lot of these big issues that often we don't look overseas, we look to a big tech company, but we can actually provide a lot of those solutions locally. But we need this to be the opportunity to invite the community in around the table. So digital infrastructure is the thing that I'd like to push, and especially access to the internet. We do not have seamless connectivity. So the broadband map, which I'll just kind of broadbandmap.nz, you can see that there's areas where you can get fibre, and 5 minutes outside of Rotorua it drops off. And then if you zoom out, Waiariki suffers from basic access issues. And so the idea is not just to spark innovation in Rotorua, it's to spark the innovation in Waiariki. Because not only do we have the talent, we have the dream teams, we could make a good game plan, but we need the energy. So we're trying to integrate. We'd love to see an integration with all the parts that are siloed at the moment, and they do go in line with our smart city aspirations and digital infrastructure and connectivity. And as a geek, I hate that my gaming lags. Oh, terrible. So if we can get the right people in the room to create a map and a plan and then present it to following committees, then at least we can talk to those things. But yeah, thank you again from Morro Bay, California, the home of Northern Chimash. Well done.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. Anything further to Jude?
I think Potawa's captured it, and with my intro, Mr. Chairman, it's just really if there's any questions.
Thank you, Councillor White.
Kia ora, Mr. Chair. Look, I'm supportive of this whole area of technology and innovation, is how we might approach it, given timeframes, timelines, and things like that. And, you know, because obviously the next generations, I excuse myself from that, well and truly advanced in this space and are actually really anxious to lead it and progress it. So I'm all for that, because I think this is where it's going. Having said that, I'm trying to look at some ways that we can showcase some things we can achieve in the shorter term as well. And I just put Jude mentioned a comment that I made around supporting one of the innovations, if you can label that we had with Datacom. Looking, setting up a Datacom unit and hub over here. And that engagement happened before COVID. And it happened with Lakes Council involved in the discussions as well. Partnering with Datacom, 51% owned by New Zealand, willing to come and champion something with Toyo Homai Council and Te Arawa. I remember going up there with Te Arawa, Malcolm and a number of others, Malcolm Short and the Ngāti Whakaua and others going up there and being quite excited by the opportunity to develop this partnership. Things went a bit cold as government aspirations changed in government departments, and MB, who were the key organisation, were almost ready to sign off and get this deal done, but pulled back. Things had changed for them in the context of what's happening politically. Having said that, I have had a recent conversation with Datacom just to see where are they at and are they still interested. Comment back to me in writing, basically just by text, was yes, we are very interested and still continuing to look at this opportunity, which provides some technological advance in some of the call centre operations and other things like that, but offering opportunities for engagement in education and technology as they know it, as they lead it around the country. And so I think it's still pretty much green fields, something that should be considered in the context of not forgetting about what's here in this paper at all. I think it's very aspirational things that we should look to have conversations around. But I'm also considering around the next number of months, and also the investment, the huge investment went into that previous engagement. I'd hate to see it wasted. The relationship is there, it's still strong. And that's what I got back in the text message that was sent back to me. Just inquiring, because I wanted to know whether or not there was an interest or not, or turn the lights off and go away. No, it's still very strongly there. And having said that, with the relationship that's there, with the persona of a company that's 51% New Zealand owned, and has got opportunities with government departments around the place, and the opportunity also engage Toyo Homai, again, who offered a building and other things up there to engage and get this thing mobilised. So, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to put that on the table, that I don't think it extinguishes at all opportunities that have been there in the past, but for various reasons were parked. You know, is this the time to look at some of those things that we've got experience with? We don't have to go through a laboured consultation issue with them, that is pretty real with a New Zealand-owned organisation that's willing to go, and including our local education group as well. So I leave it there, Mr. Chair. I leave it on the table to be considered for the teams that get together and work on this. You know, camera ready, aspirational, all these things come into the mix. So, my thoughts, Mr. Chair.
Te taru, te manukura me tapso.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. this is a really exciting, really exciting area. Potawa's right, we could very easily fall behind, and actually we kind of have over the years. We forget that Rotorua is a very central area, so why not have major innovators, data, all based here in Rotorua? And so, but naturally, of course, all of that needs to be powered by something. The more that we attract, the more power that we require. And we do have exciting geothermal power and sustainable energy coming on board in future as well. So we're well placed in Rotorua. Just in terms of the immediate resource, though, I did just have a question. It mentions Te Tatua and Council have an opportunity to create a formal, quote, resource partnership. Just wanted to check if this was within existing budgets or there was further investment required.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Your Worship, there's no additional funding sought at this point. The discussions would be to explore the topics mentioned there and then come back to this committee for a recommendation and then to Council for the appropriations as per delegations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just on that as well, what I would really like to see is us attracting external funding into this as well. If we are going down any specific projects, I also think of, as Potawa has mentioned, around availability of broadband. You know, we've got many communities, in particular Māori Papakainga in our rural areas that may not have access to even broadband or cell phone coverage. So I think there's definitely a great place to start there. And if we were to look at it from a tourism perspective, of course, we want people to be able to come here and potentially work here, which is the direction that the government is taking. So plenty of opportunity for that. I did also want to mention, though, in terms of where we take this, I'm very supportive of exploring a Arawa Innovation Partnership, as is mentioned in the report. But, you know, we also have places like Scion, the Crown Research Institute, right on our doorstep as well. So I suppose there are many ways that we could take this, but anyway, that we take it, any direction, I would just emphasise that I'd really like to see local benefit, in particular iwi benefit from this, if it's going to be a Arawa Innovation Partnership, and just to be mindful that the more we do engage with larger organisations, they will also have their own intentions and profits to be made. So with the limited resources that we have, I would just emphasise that while there's excellent opportunities available, let's make sure that our locals are the ones who will benefit from it not only in jobs, but also in enabling, empowering and earning a good income and having jobs here at home. Thank you.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, and I took on many of the comments already made. What I would hope is that this doesn't get put down the priority list. 6 months to the next election, this committee's got opportunities and many things to focus on. The top 4 of our priorities here are pretty much business as usual type of things that we need to do as part of our day-to-day work. This is not. This has got the potential of doing something new, generating new jobs, new futures for our people. So I would love to see this as just as given as much importance, as much weight as the other 4. This could be transformational for our city. Technology is the way forward, and as Potawa rightly pointed out, we're being left behind on many fronts. This is one that we've got the opportunity to get ahead. So let's support this. Kaupapa. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. That's music to Potawa's ears. Did you want to say anything, Kōrero mai?
Just kia ora tātou. I was just going to say the partnerships. Rotorua has 100 years of the globe coming to visit us. And I think we need to enhance and upgrade some of our networks, just at the basic, and get our whānau all connected so they can all take advantage of the opportunities that people like me get to just enjoy. You know, I don't take for granted travelling. As a kid though, I was poor. I was from a big whānau, we didn't have much. Every now and again our mum would turn on the phone and we'd have to ring collect, and then, you know, we might have a TV every now and again, but, and then when Dad brought the VHS into the CD player, it was amazing. But now these things are ubiquitous, and our kids shouldn't be missing out. Our farmers shouldn't be missing out on basic opportunities, first world opportunities. So if I need to kuha the first round of biscuits, and then we have muffins, we will kuha, it's really mahi aroha. That's what I'd like to say, mahi aroha, mahi koha, and let's create something that no one is doing across the world. So kia tātou.
Kia ora. And possibly the final comment, Councillor Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question, if I may, for the self-confessed geek. Is that all right? Just wondered if you might like to comment on the recent technological innovation of I guess it was Rotorua NZ with getting Minecraft involved in Rotorua. Perhaps you could give some perspective on the significance of that as an example.
So me to Piki Studios and Te Puia, Microsoft, so that when Minecraft, the movie came out, it made $305 million in one weekend. It's a global sensation. And because it was made in Aotearoa, all eyes are on our country. And you can download the mod, you can play Te Puia, you can play Queenstown, but these are just one of many different opportunities that people want to be a part of the Rotorua story. But they first, as Risha mentioned, I think we need to, it's about our values and our ethics, and we need to, yes, practice aroha, but sometimes that's been used against us, and also about our manaakitanga, because sometimes we've given away too much. So we really do have to retain the value, the story, the value, the add-on, if there's any money, if there's jobs, yes, but I think what's happened is this international collaboration is going to be normal. I remember bringing Google to Wānanga Aotearoa in Westbrook back in 2007. And I invited the kaumātua and I said, Google's coming. They said, what's a Google? And then we work with Microsoft, and then we work with Facebook and TikTok. And I'm also a bit older, I'm a dinosaur, a digital dinosaur, but my tamariki, my daughter met up with a friend that she's been talking to online in Santa Monica. They make international friends, and sometimes we go to them and sometimes they come to us. I think if we, on the one hand, stick to our values, but on the other hand, understand the ethics behind all this technology. That's another thing that Rotorua could pioneer. Things are moving too fast, and we need brains like yours, Councillor Lee, to talk through the ethics and what it means for us and for future generations, as well as the jobs and the fun things. But there is a dark side we should talk to as well. But that's for the next week.
Thank you, Potoa.
Sorry, just another one, if I may, with your indulgence, Mr. Chair.
Don't mind.
So, sorry, did Rotorua feature in the Minecraft movie itself? I didn't see the movie myself, my son did.
I think it went around us. I think lots of the crew were there, the teams were there. But the game itself is a Te Puia skin, so that's a Te Puia gameplay.
Right, yeah.
But I think they use staff from Rotorua. But we've only just recently got facilities, local gecko down in Nongataha.
Right.
So it's possibly that we didn't have the right facilities. Instead, they used our staff and our stories and the backdrop of Aotearoa. But there are 2 more movies coming down. I shouldn't say anything, but Rotorua should be getting ready.
So, isn't Minecraft something like the most popular game in history and has been #1 for about a decade or something like that? It's crazy. So, are you a fan of Minecraft Bed Wars? Would better technology would help you with that, would it?
We're producing a game from Rotorua right now. I think making a game is lucrative, playing a game is exciting, and being a part of that game story is what we should aspire to be a part of.
Yeah. Okay, you've got Potoa's phone number, you can ring him afterwards. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor Lee. Well, now I'm going to ask for a mover and a second, and Rob Griffiths has put the motion up there of the reports we've just received. I'll read it out. That Te Arawa 2050 Vision Committee recommends to Council that committee members' feedback be provided to Council officers on the key projects discussed in this report. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor O'Brien, and a seconder, Councillor Patterson. All in favour, please raise your right hand. Sorry, I got my left hand up. Yeah. Kaupai. Unanimous. Nō reira, so
Sorry, that's
thank you that
excuse me, Chair.
went down to the wire.
That was an abstention from me, I'm afraid.
Sorry, what was it?
Abstention.
Oh, aroha mai. Abstentionist. Okay, and now it's just before closing karakia, there's a couple of things we need to mention, and that is our next meeting is on the 3rd of July, 9 a.m., and it'll be held on the marae at Te Papaioru at Ohinemutu. All welcome, and Ngāti Whakaue will be there. I'm hoping that the champion kapahaka group might be there to welcome us on, but no pressure, Rangiti Aria. You are only the front row middle at Te Matatini. But congratulations while we're saying that. So with all of that, just to everybody, thank you very much for our first committee meeting of Te Tātou and Rotorua Lakes Council, the Vision Committee. Thank you for all that you've contributed and provided. And just ask now if Rangi Tiaria, named after her nanny, will do our closing karakia, and feel free if you want to do a waiata after, or a haka, you're allowed here. We don't have a privileges committee to think whether you can or not. But
and I say, I'll do the karakia and you start the waiata, Mr. Chair. Wei anō, e toaia nei ngā mihi kia koutou, me ngā kaimahi o te kaunihira o te tatau o te Arawa i ngā mahi pai. Ka whakakapi ake ki te karakia, kia hihiri tātou. Ka whakairi a te tapu, kia wātea ai te ara, kia tūruki whakataha ai, haumi e hui e tāiki e, tēnā tātou.
And before the waiata, I do want to thank everyone who's been here, the staff and everyone who contributed to the media. And now, ko koe he waiata? Oh, e honore. Oh, another one. Anyway. Oh, anything. E papa waiari, taku nei maari, taku nei mahi ne tu kuroi mata. Hi aue, ka mate ahau, e hine hoki mai ra. E hine hoki mai ra. Mā te atua koutou e manaki, kia ora no tātou katoa. Kia ora.
That's what I learned at school. It's the only one I know.